Live from the Unmuted Newsroom, this is Black Headlines by Black Alerts.
Happy holidays and welcome to Black Headlines. I'm Alex Haynes.
And I'm Tiffany Linnell.
Well, hello.
Happy holidays to you.
Is it a happy holiday? Not for everyone, but there are people that are rejoicing in the land.
Well, yes, just not for us and most people who are paying attention to what's going on in the country.
Because there are some people that are us, but maybe not like us, that are rejoicing regardless. So, because ignorance is bliss.
It is, and I wish it wasn't. But it
But
is.
I'm go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nope, that's it. It just is.
I'm trying to get myself calibrated for the evening. The fact of the matter is, you can be ignorant if you want to. It is too late.
Yeah.
Finally. I mean, not really finally. It's too late.
And that's really the synopsis of
it is. And
this show.
It's too late. I think Erased by Design is meaningful, but on the ground, on the surface level, it's too late.
Is there anything that we can do?
No. And this is going to be difficult for people, Americans. There are people that are actively becoming un-Americans because the government is planning to take away their naturalized citizenship. So we're already there. It's too late. It is too late. And that is it's going to be very difficult. That's not just you trying to swallow a hard pill. It's not something that we're used to. There is always something that can fix it, or someone that can fix it, or something that can be done. We're conditioned to say, I'm going to keep calling. Let me speak to your manager. We've got Karen syndrome.
Escalate.
Yeah, Karen syndrome can't help you this time. Like, there's not a Karen. There's not a prayer. There's not a genie in the bottle that's coming to save you this time, because you didn't save you.
Because what did you vote for?
You didn't save you.
And what did you talk to other people to vote for?
This is not really about your personal feeling at this time. And we've said so many things. We've done this over and over and over again, almost to the point of fatigue. But I'll say this because we gotta get started. But voting has consequences. Elections have consequences, and your choice not to vote, not to participate, for whatever reason, the reason, right? I don't really want to talk about people's reasoning, because it doesn't matter, because it's too late. So now that it's too late, the purpose and the goal here is to tell you what can be done, if anything can be done, and I guess the timeline
of what can be done.
No, of when things will be done to you.
Oh, because
yeah, there's not a timeline of what can be done. I mean, you're probably gonna ask me that question again. People are gonna ask me that question tomorrow. People are gonna ask me that question. It's too late.
It's too late.
It's just too late. It's too late. Full stop. And we can go. I said to you the last time that we did this just a couple days ago, because if you haven't been having these conversations, you're just now finding out that it's too late, or you're just now believing that it's too late. All of those are personal problems that you're going to have to unpack on your own. There's not going to be funding for a doctor to help you process that. There won't be funding for you to, I mean, it's just essentially too late.
Funding?
And now your
That's cute.
livelihood is based on your zip code. So
And
it's
honestly, it has been for a while, but like in a worse way now.
I don't think people believe that. Like I
Believe
agree.
that it has been for a while?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's actually always been like that.
Yeah.
It was that way before you and I arrived here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
But by
unfortunately,
design. It's by design. You are being erased by your design. Your rights being based on and dependent on where you live is by design. Welcome to America.
it just is what it is.
Great.
Today, the House passed the final version of um, a bill that that listen. People have been talking about this bill. It's had multiple names, and you may have not been paying attention because of the plethora of names that it had. There's one name that you couldn't miss, and it was its name before it was a bill, and that's Project 2025. And so for
And
you
before
that
that,
just
it was
missed
the
it,
mandate for leadership.
dual name for that one. That's my point. There's so many names for everything. That's also by design.
Right.
You can hear Project 2025, download it. It says mandate for leadership, and you're like, oh, I'm nobody's leader. This don't apply to me.
Oh my God, you just said that, and somebody probably really said that for real.
None of this, I don't know. So as you know, not only are we living in Who Wants to Be an American, the reality show, but Donald Trump is set to sign this into law performatively with fireworks. Like, not only are you like the type of celebration that is going, I can't even formulate
Because it's
the
just
right
so
phrase.
ridiculous.
The type of pomp and circumstance that will surround the dismantling of rights, healthcare, uh, education, the number of people that like pomp and circumstance, these people will be celebrating with their flavorless meats and probably hot dogs and the fact that they dismantled your healthcare, that they took away your rights, the fact that you're going to be going into debt over simple medical expenses or further debt for your education. These things are by design. They were in the bill. And for one reason or another, you were convinced not to vote in your best interest. And the number of people that were convinced to do that, there's a spectrum. It's a wide spectrum of people that just decided not to vote in their own interest.
Do you think that people knew? What do you think is that disconnect between people voting for their interests and knowing what their interests are and knowing how to vote for their interests? I don't think people know how to vote for their interests because the system is intentionally ambiguous and difficult to understand so that you understand truly if you are voting in your interest or not.
They were voting against people and the against the interests of people that they don't like. There's no other way to slice and dice that. So they were hoping that they were voting for things that would affect other people, them not included. And they neglected to look further into the details to see if they were included in that plan,
Right.
or they believed blindly the people that they elected, or coach the people that they've always supported, or the people that they always voted for. That's what happened. That's what happened. That's why, like that. I mean, to me, and that's my thought. I don't think that for me, it doesn't go much further than that.
I think I'm asking because if we're going to talk about what's next and what we can do now and all of that, somewhere in there we have to figure out the root of the issue as well, right? Like we have to know where is everybody going wrong? Because it can't just be, I don't want to vote for it can be. And for some it was, I don't want to have a black woman running this country. And also, there seemed to be a very large disconnect, and some of it intentional, between I got, a STEMI check from the president, and the whole I needed to, vote for the businessman. Y'all
H-
found out he was a businessman and a failed one at that
But how much
a
of
while
that
ago.
reasoning do you believe? Like, I think it is a good possibility and maybe even easy to believe that people just got a stimulus check and that was their only barometer. And for many, maybe that was the case. Not enough to have thrown the numbers like they did allegedly for this man.
Is it allegedly anymore? I don't think it's allegedly anymore. He's admitted it. Like he's admitted that Musk helped him win the election. Musk has admitted that he helped Trump win the election. I don't think that's alleged anymore. We read an article about what they did with the satellites and the electronic voting machines and how they
I'm
rigged
just
the
saying that he
election.
was certified the president, just like they said Joe was certified the president. So
Okay.
that's what happened. That's what they told you. And still, whether he won or not, people voted for him.
But really it went downhill from there, right? Like it went downhill once Dems, independents, even moderates decided that they weren't going to fight the fact that we know the numbers just didn't make sense. They didn't add up.
They had there's no fight in them.
And that's my problem. And that's evident by what we just witnessed today.
And see, I that's no longer my problem. I don't care because it's too late.
I
I am so
I
beyond analysis because what is that going to do?
I don't have an answer for that.
I don't like.
But
For me, I
we
could
still
not
have to
spend the
do it.
next 10 years wondering why they let this happen, why they didn't fight it, why they didn't contest it, why they continue to be people that have no backbone, that are like. Here's the thing: if you're, I use this analogy, and I'm gonna use it because I use it in so many ways. If you believe something, like, and let me apply this to faith, because a lot of people, especially specifically in our community, where they're connected to some type of faith institution today or not, they're spiritual in nature. But if
True.
you, by the heart of your hearts, you confess with your mouth, you believe in your heart, and by the heart of heart, like you believe from the day you were born and you'll believe that you are serving one God till you die. You must confess and believe, and if you don't, you are going to hell. And there's a lot of people in this world going to hell, and you spend your life believing that. Even about people that don't believe the same thing, they're never affected by it. Like, and I don't think that
That's
people
true.
that live in those bubbles understand that. The people that you are saying these people are doing all of this, and God's gonna get them. They don't believe in that. They don't even believe in. And you're comfortable with, like they were saying, they don't have to believe it. Don't mean it don't have. Like, you must understand that fear that's motivating you is not motivating them.
Is it fear is a interesting tool, right? Like I don't know that I feel like it's been managed and used, unfortunately, successfully on the conservative side. And even after the bill passed today, we kept hearing, the Dems messaging and how do they do this and that how do they message this after it's passed to their constituents and everything else. And I'm like, I don't care about your messaging anymore. Your terrible messaging is part of the reason we've gotten here. I said to someone a few weeks ago that the Dems did release a response to Project 2025, and they said, when? what was it called? And I said, you just proved my point. They released a response a day late and a dollar short, several dollars short, because Project 2025 was released in 2023. They didn't even do anything about it until it went viral last year. That's a problem.
I gotta
They
let you
play
unpack
a
that because I don't care. It's too late.
I know it's too late, and I know it just it's frustrating. It's frustrating that it's too late because it didn't have to be too late. And if you're just joining, we're saying it's too late. It's too late to make a course correction about the bill that just passed today. I guess we should start there. Some
Yep.
people still don't know that it passed. There is one of those freaking gnats. If you are in the South, you are dealing with the gnats just like the rest of us. So excuse me waving it. It's just so annoying. But yeah, we should probably start with that. So if you don't know, I guess I'll start with Congress has been going back and forth about a large congressional bill that will essentially provide tax cuts to the wealthy and cut a lot of safety net services and programs for um, middle to lower class individuals in this country. It is a very, very dangerous bill, and they've been going back and forth. It met with some opposition in the Senate, but it passed the Senate on what was that, Tuesday, I think. And then there were over 270 amendments, multiple amendments from different congressional people. So they went back and forth between the House and the Senate. The House, it landed in the House after the Senate passed it on Tuesday, and they took a vote after Representative Hakeem Jeffries broke a record this afternoon. Speaker Mike Johnson got up and gave his own well speech, and then they started the vote upon which they passed the big, beautiful bill, 218 to 214, with only two conservatives joining all Republicans, excuse me, all 212 Democrats. And I believe the independents are included in that 212 as well, who tend to caucus. They uh, did that 218 to 214 vote with the bill passing. So it is not a good day.
No.
Now here's the thing. Some of this will not take effect until 2026 after midterm elections because they do not want the worst of these things to actually show up and be hitting everyone's pockets before some of these folks have to run for reelection. They want to be able to use their effective messaging because unfortunately their propaganda, disinformation, and misinformation has been highly effective. They want to be able to chug that same machine and get reelected in some of these locations. And then it'll really start to hit our pockets. It'll start to really hit our communities. We'll see more impacts on different things. Some of it will take effect this year. Some of it we're already living under because some of the cuts and tax things that we're under now are from Trump's first administration. So it's just a continuation. Um, but some of it won't take effect until 2026. That's the high level summary.
Yeah, I mean, I think people hear bill, right? And I think you should know that how the bill works, the technicalities of the bill. It's also too late for us to be explaining it once a bill like this passes. And there's been let me say this: there have been a number of detrimental that's not a word, but it sounded like one of those pharmaceutical commercials. There have been a number of detrimental bills that have been
Wow.
passed in the United States, specifically by this Congress, over the years. So I'm not saying like this. I say it's too late for you to do anything about what's in this bill that has lasting ramifications. It's going to last a long time. The effects for this bill are going to last for decades.
Right.
That's the translation. Decades, generations. It's a periodically long time. And that is a reference for those of you that understand that reference. This is going to impact you. And what else? I mean, and I get it, right? I get for a certain subset of people, and we can talk to millennials. We understand that plight. What hasn't been a disaster?
Well,
What has not been a disaster? And won't it will start with 9/11 because from that point where the country entered war, we've been in war since the year 2001. So compound that with the fact that we have somewhat of a shoddy understanding of what was going on in the world because there were Cold Wars and things that were happening when we were born. The textbooks call Russia 7 different things, right? So there's no telling. Just the fundamental understanding, unless you've gone and got this research, done that research and got this information on your own, world politics are a little confusing to you. And you see what I'm saying? So there's not really a easy way to say that if you haven't been paying attention, you just got screwed. And the best thing that you can do is pay attention now to see how you can navigate the new mess that you're in. And we're in the mess. This law is nasty. It targets some nasty things. And all in all, I think one of the most important things that you can find out now is that if you live in one of the and it's going to affect a lot of people in different ways, but one thing, a myth that we should bust right now, everyone's not going to be affected the same way. Also by design. I lost, you're on mute.
wow. Thank you. You
You're
also
welcome.
said in the beginning, your rights now depend on your zip code, right? And that is such an important statement because, my response was, and truthfully, it has for some time. But what this bill does is really bridge the gap that has been being ruined, for lack of a better word, and grown even more over the last few years and generations. Honestly, bit by bit, I said while we were preparing for the show, they have been breaking us down and breaking our rights down bit by bit, little by little, kind of nipping at things one by one over time. What this does is almost accelerate some of the things that they have been trying to do. So it accelerates the removing people off of safety net programs that they need, right? This whole notion that able-bodied people are just taking advantage of the system. Sure, people take advantage of systems all the time. Look at the wealthy. Y'all definitely take advantage of a lot of the systems that are intended to break us. But like,
I have something to
it's
say, but I'm gonna let you finish.
go ahead.
Because no, I don't want, I want you to finish your thought. My because we keep saying it's by design, and I want to give some examples.
Okay, go right ahead.
So one of the things that they said over and over was we for about 4 months, if you ask these people that worked on this bill, they said there are absolutely no cuts to Medicaid. As you started to do the numbers, and it's not hard to do the numbers or the math. All you have to do is look at the programs that they have targeted, see how much funding has been allocated, and see what they are doing with that funding. Look at those programs and see who benefits by those programs. When you look at those programs, you see who benefits by those programs. You see that they cut those programs. They come back and tell you we didn't cut Medicaid, but we did cut this program, a program that means nothing to them, or a program that they've identified as a good target market that didn't vote for them or didn't support them. Now they are playing politics with your life, and that's part of why you can hear for decades, you'll have hear Democrats specifically say that Republicans really obstruct and they don't really know how to legislate. So they really just cry, complain. They spark cultural wars, and they've done this really since Reagan. Democrats have their own issues, but this is I'm giving you this example because it's important that you understand how you are characterized in the grand scheme of things and how you are actually discussed in Washington. There's discussions happening about you all the time, and that's what you should be thinking about when you think about who you're voting for or who you want to support. They've used this trope over and over that we're not cutting Medicaid, we're not going to cut any Medicare. Then they cut the programs that affect these people. They come back when you address that and say, well, we've only cut waste, fraud, and abuse. That is intentionally calling you waste, intentionally insinuating that you are committing fraud, or there's probably something amiss with these people that are on this program committing fraud. We do have data that suggests that there are fraudulent people that are in all programs. It's a large country, large programs, but by no means is it the masses of people. A lot of what we have in this country is called the working poor. We have a demographic of people that are robbing, they can't even rob Peter because they don't know Peter. So they can't pay Paul, and they're just working multiple jobs. These people are also being subsidized by programs that help them, from SNAP, the new name for food stamps, Medicaid, that is helping people with their medication, and for one reason or another. And so a number of people that are on Medicaid are already working so what is happening is people that are representing you, and these could be people that you didn't vote for, maybe because you didn't vote. But these people are making decisions on your behalf with this information and using tropes to get their message across. They're getting their message across to people that hate you. And I say hate like I don't say it lightly. The only way that people could be happy about taking things away from people is that people that you should have voted for, that represent you, have convinced them that they should hate you for one reason or the other, by telling them that you're not working, by telling them that their tax money is going to your health care or to feed your children. And I know that you guys aren't paying attention to this, because during the Biden administration last year, and we're talking this last summer, while there was an election going on, these same people that had no power, 14 states voted to not feed children during the summer months. 14 states, those same states had full participation in this bill to take all of these things away. And these are facts that you can just find on your own. So it's easy to use these tropes. They use these tropes because that's the way that if they can divide, if you can other somebody, and we talk about this all the time, if you can other somebody and get people to feel like they are other, not a human. They do this with everything. They do it from the trans issues, they do it gay issues, they do it black issues, they do it like we were just off of these same people were telling you that Haitians were eating cats and dogs. We're not 6 months away from that. And these are the same people that are now running the country. So there's no way, just based on how they legislate, that you could think they're doing this in good faith or that they had bad information. It's just kind of where we are. And I it bothers me. But what we do with those tropes, unfortunately, and now I have to talk to us, our own community, because that's really our focal point. Like we perpetuate those same thoughts. Well, them people, if they ain't working, I'm working. They shouldn't have. Ain't nobody should have health care. I ain't got it. Okay, all right. This comes from families. It comes from pulpits, and none of this is new. And that complacent, like, I'm sorry, that rhetoric and that dialogue that happens in these spaces conditions people to be apathetic, really, to their own needs, into their own livelihoods, into their own future. And we find ourselves in this place now that it's just too late. And it's 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 too late. My thoughts.
I think that you said a mouthful and amen and ashe, because no disagreement here from me. And you got to the you got to the they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. And I think I had put that in like the recesses of my mind because I almost forgot about that. Like, these are terrible, terrible people.
Are literally terrible humans.
And like, how are you that terrible of a human being that you would get on a national stage, really international, because the world is watching, and say something about a group of people, have no facts to back it up, you completely made up the story, and you had people accusing a whole group of people of eating animals, and y'all voted for this man.
Double down on it. And where you should be concerned is that in the masses, they didn't come out. There were none of them in mass. That this was an attack on humanity. It was a blatant attack on humanity, and no one, they doubled down, started to say that they were going to go and do some investigations, and they did this to literally other these people in your own zeitgeist, for you to just start to believe, well, I heard, and now you start to hear it. You start to hear people say it in passing. People start to say it. It becomes part of regular dialogue, and it becomes normalized. And it's the same
But it
thing that happened
shouldn't.
with the Orange Man. Everything that he does became normalized, and it's partially because we have an obsession with
Right.
that.
What is that about? I
It's
I know we
nasty.
have to we have to actually start going through this heinous, horrendous bill. But we had to start with what actually just happened. So the first section, first of all, if you have not looked at the bill, you haven't opened the bill. The bill is over 1,000 pages. Okay, it did not start that big. Well, it's always been big. Um, Certain folks asked Speaker Johnson to break this bill up into two packages. He refused to do it, and so it became the big beautiful bill. In this big beautiful bill
He
that is
refused to
over a
do it
thousand,
because he knew that it would not pass.
it would not
Neither one
pass
of
if
them
he
would
broke
pass.
it into two separate. That just was not going to happen. It wasn't going to work. They narrowly passed it this time. The only reason this bill passed is because they have a slight majority in the House. And so it passed 218 to 214. But it has different sections. When I looked at the, we'll say, table of contents, for lack of a better word, there was only one section that actually included enhancements, and that was for the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense gets a lot of enhancements. The Department of Defense already has one of the largest budgets in our entire federal government. And so the rest of it was repeal this, rescind this, take this away, we're cutting this, we're going to increase this for the wealthy. Now, does it say we're increasing this for the wealthy? No, not necessarily. Of course not. What it says is
Why would it
we're
say
going
that?
to make this a tax advantage account, but that tax advantage account is something that wealthier people in this country usually use, not something that lower income families are able to contribute to, like a 529 plan. That's not how that works. So essentially, they are taking the safety net programs that millions of people rely on, and not just poor people. I don't know why people just think poor people are on safety net programs. That's not how that works. People use Medicaid and Medicare for different reasons, and so millions of Americans use some of these safety net programs, millions of Americans will be impacted. Millions of Americans use rural hospitals and different clinics and things. Any of those that get federal funding is going to be cut. So, for example, SNAP and food access, those work requirements have now been adjusted. And if you live in a red state, your SNAP and food benefit or EBT, your work requirements for unemployment or anything like that. For example, in Georgia, you have to apply to a certain number of jobs and you have to apply through the state website. You have to, submit the records. You have to meet with someone in a center. They took that away during the pandemic for a little bit, but there are certain requirements that you have to meet in order to get unemployment, SNAP, food stamps, some of these social safety net programs. Those work
So
requirements have changed.
for the people in the back that are like, okay, I'm hearing you. I've heard a little bit about a bill that I should be paying attention to, but I don't really, I voted one time, haven't done it in a while. And
Right.
I don't remember hearing anything about red states and blue states and it's in school. So what are you talking about? Like
Well, they wouldn't.
I thought the 50 states were the 50 states. What are you talking about?
They would not have taught it as red states and blue states because they don't really teach. And you said this to me when we on our show the other night, um, that civics was an old and dated word, and it really hurt my heart a little bit. But I do understand that because they aren't teaching civics in schools anymore. But when you learn civics, you learn that there are red states and blue states and how those states govern themselves and how they care or do not care for their citizens and the needs of their citizens matters, unfortunately. So it goes right along with what you said at the beginning. Your rights largely depend on your zip code now. They're going to matter even more after some of these things in this bill take effect,
So for
including
someone
SNAP
that
and food
says,
access.
how do I know what kind of state I live in?
Well, that's a bit of a larger question, but the easiest way,
It's an important question, and I ask it
it
because
is,
that's what we're dealing with right now.
right,
What we are dealing with is people playing off of ignorance and playing off
right,
of technicality and playing off of things. So you believe that you moved, or you need, or let me say, not even about the people that moved, because you've taken steps that most people haven't taken. But for the people that have never moved, and it's like, why would I need to move? It's just cheaper here. Everywhere I look is too expensive. Why is it cheaper?
it, it
Why there are certain red states that don't have state taxes? Why don't they have state taxes? What are you lacking without state taxes? You
well,
know what you can do if you drive around the United States? You can tell what states have state taxes when you enter their state on the road, on the highway. It's very evident. Well, not the highway. Highways are taken care of by the federal government. Interstates, interstates, because of course federation, that's important. But your highways, these would be your Georgia road. Georgia has state taxes, so I'm not singling them out. But if you
right.
live in a state that does not have state taxes,
I
because the
was gonna
people
say the
who have homes in those states, their property taxes are sky high, and they talk about that shit all the time. They are the ones that are vocal about it. But you may be disillusioned to think that property taxes are sky high everywhere, because that's how they legislate in your state. That's the messaging
right,
that you hear. You hear your people talk about every state is not like that, right?
right.
But in states that may be paying more taxes, what services are available for the people in those states?
Well, we could just compare the 2 states that we live in
Hmm.
because, you've heard me say many, many, many times, Georgia has state reserves of billions. There are $16 billion in the Georgia state reserves, and yet and still our legislature, our governor refuses to fully expand Medicaid in this state. We have had multiple hospitals close in urban and rural areas over the last decade. It is a big problem here.
What
So
I'd
for
like to
us
do
to
is
have
focus on.
$16 billion in state reserves, and to answer your question before you go to your next point, the easiest way is to just Google. That's the easiest way to find out if you live in a red state or a blue state. Is I live in Kentucky. is my now getting into the specifics of that, it's a little bit more difficult because right now Kentucky has a Democratic governor, but their legislature, I don't believe, has a Democratic majority. So you can get into the weeds there, but the easiest way is to just Google, this is my state. Do I live in a red or blue state or purple?
You want to do that because it's important that you know what type of information you're seeing when you turn on the
Right,
TV or the hell with the TV. You open your apps and you have these ads that are targeted and you're like, "Oh, I hate the political season because of X." We all hate political ads. I think that's a nationwide thing, but the types of ads that you see are based on where you live. If they are full of
right.
fear, if they are full of misogyny, racism, bigotry, it's likely that you live in a red state.
More than likely, yes.
More than likely. And you're going to see some of that, but the xenophobia, you see that more in blue states because they're like, "Oh, well, we work hard and these people are here." That othering thing comes back up, right? Anytime somebody is trying to other people, they are trying to get you to take the human factor away from who they are. Once you take the human factor away from people you take that human factor out of the equation, you're okay with anything that happens to those people.
Right.
It doesn't matter who you are. I can be honest about that. I can take the humanity factor out of people that are in the KKK. I don't. But if I did, I don't. I want to be very clear about that. I don't.
Okay.
Don't give a. I.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Mm-hmm.
see where I'm going here. So it's very
I
easy
do.
to get to that point to where you start to take the humanity out of it. When you do that, it's very easy for people to say, "Okay, you know what? I agree. I kind of don't like that either. Oh, I kind of don't like. Oh, I kind of know why." And it's easier to do it when you are ignorant about a people group. So the more ignorant you are around somebody, the easier you are swayed to believe that whatever you heard about those people is true. And that is by design. That weapon is used against you in everything. Your government uses it, your church uses it, your family has used it. About we don't fool with those type of people because of X. These people
Right.
you don't even know, but you put characteristics on them because of fear. And I digress because we could spend all day there. We should talk about you talked about the Medicaid cuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, people are
Which
losing like the
Medicare will have a 4% across the board cut beginning in 2026. So if you just joined us, remember well, not remember, if you just joined us at the top of this, we said that some of these cuts, some of these impacts and changes won't take effect until 2026 because they want to make sure that some of these folks get in reelected into their offices before some of the hardest hitting things hit communities that and their constituents that will be voting for them. And so, with all of the No Kings protests and things going on, they were intentional about putting language in this bill so that some of these did not take effect until 2026 after midterms or right before, so that you still won't be able to really see the impacts, the hardest hitting impacts, before you have to go into the voting booth and vote them back in.
certainly. I think one thing that I want to insert here because it's all I'm going to talk about the Congress and how feckless they are a lot. But I will tell you that these people, despite what they do in these bills, always their health care always continues.
And it's good healthcare. They get really, really, really good
Their
healthcare that
health care
we, the
always
taxpayers,
continues.
pay for.
They've dismantled the government, but in the moments that they do that and the government shuts down and people that work in the government, national parks, like you say, federal government, and they try to make you believe that that's people in DC. People that work for the federal government run your local social security office. These are the
Yes.
type of people that are affected. So when your grandmother's social security check didn't come, or they said she's not eligible, or they said she's dead, then they said you can't come in here without an appointment. I just took my grandmother to the social security office in a red state. I got there. There were armed guards. I had to go through a metal detector to get into the Social Security office because of the
A
types
metal
of things
detector
that
to get
they've
into the
done.
Social Security
There
office
was
is
two. There were two
crazy.
people working. So when they say that they're sending people in because there's waste, fraud, and abuse, that's really based on them wanting to delay you getting money that's due you.
Right.
They like to use the word entitlement.
Right.
There's nothing entitled about getting money that you put into a system because of good faith that it would be there for you when it was time for you to retire. That's not a damn entitlement.
No.
It's
It's
just
supposed
not.
to be a right. It shouldn't even be a privilege. It's supposed to be a right. We have a right to all of the things that are guaranteed us by the Constitution. But clearly, the Constitution has just been thrown right out the window because the amount of things that are being reconsidered in the Constitution are just outrageous. But
Can
yes,
I
there will be a 4.4% across the board cut in Medicare. And the Congressional Business Office is estimating 10.9 million more uninsured by 2034. Go ahead with your what you were about to say, and then I want to highlight something
Well, I
that
was
we hear
just
a lot.
with those cuts. I mean, that is impacting pregnant people, postpartum, disabled, children. There's a number of people that are impacted by these cuts, right? So you've got
Right,
Medicare, you've got Medicaid, and then the types of people, like again, they just say, well, no, we're only cutting people that are committing fraud. We're only cutting where we deem that it's wasteful. Just like they're saying just like they said they were only coming for criminals. And look, all of you that voted for Donald Trump, that ain't happening. It didn't happen like that, right? That's crazy. And another thing that they did in this bill was take off guardrails. So
yeah.
these are the same people that were hollering about how Biden was spending too much money.
But you just increase money. Part of the bill, and I was reading this before, part of the bill is an increase in money to feral swine eradication. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need money to go to that or the other kind of randomly selected things that are in the agricultural section of this very large bill. But it's millions of dollars. And so as I was reading that section and other sections like it, I couldn't help but think to myself, it seems like this is mighty convenient for, I don't know, maybe corporate farms to get money and increases in the corporation that is our meat
Corporate farms.
industry, our dairy
Cor-
industry, poultry
corporate farms.
farms, corporate farms. This seems like a mighty convenient legal way to get money and to like infuse these corporations with taxpayer money from corporate contracts. That's what it kind of seems like to me. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just call me a conspiracy theorist, but
I
that's
think
what it
not.
seems like.
I think
I,
not. I just think that there are a number of things that, and honestly, we don't have to explore this today, but conservatism is exactly what it sounds like.
right,
So, but this is not conservatism. So you are boasting as a conservative, but you're bloating everything. You lied about your math, but that's not a surprise because you lie about everything. Like everything is a lie. So when everything
right,
is a lie, now you're forcing people to pick and choose which ones they're going to talk about, which ones they're going to get frustrated about, which ones they're going to get mad about, which ones they even know about. That's why you just
right,
lie. They lie, lie, lie. They get louder with their lies. You check them with their lie and they want to come arrest you. They're not arresting you because they think you did something wrong. They want you to prove that you didn't. So they want you to waste your time, waste your resources. And this is the type of mental oppression, the mental gymnastics that this country has always put Black people through. So part of this right now, we're having this discussion right now for Black people that are unaware, asleep, and just choosing not to participate. And I get it. You're like, I go through these mental gymnastics all the time. I don't know what the fuck's going to be different. I didn't mean to drop that F-bomb, but it is what it is. It is just it's just different. It's just But for people that came here with a different, I was talking to a lady yesterday, and it's important that we have these conversations because some of you, whether you watch this live, you watch this later, you're listening to it. I was harping on this in the last election because part of the generalization, and we can I can break this down, Tiffany, so often and over and over and over how this has transpired over the years, through the years. What has
Right.
happened once they other you, because that is by design. You have
Right.
black and white in this country. So you fall into these two groups, black and white. So now when you have immigration, you have people coming in, they come in with their culture, their heritage. They have no idea. They've heard about America, they've heard about its freedoms, they've heard what it can do for them, how they are optimistic. They come in, they try to get a part of the system, and they don't even realize that they've fallen into this party system or into this construct that they are going to have to identify as one thing or another. Now, there's an
Right.
underlying system there that is working overtime, that works in this country, white supremacy, that you will be able to see, whether you speak the language or not, which people have privilege and which people don't, which people
Yes.
are problems, which people are not. So
Right.
you have people that come in with this type of skin, and they come in here and they cling to their culture, and they tell their young, you are not Black American. Now their kids go and they get into the system, and the kids realize that they in fact are now Black Americans, or understood to be Black people. Once they get into the system, they have to go back and tell their parents over time, because they're like, no, this is the way that we're being perceived. But because you come in here, you see what's happened. You don't know the history, so you just believe it, and you believe that you have to align with these people. They've kind of bamboozled you. There's a whole bait and switch there. And so
Because our propaganda goes out into the world just like it comes into our homes, our American homes. It goes out and it comes in.
you get here, and now you believe the trope that Black people are lazy. You believe the trope or the narrative that Black Americans are not they're lazy, they are not motivated, that they're ghetto. You all these labels that come, and I say this all the time. Black people were not considered lazy in this country until we stopped working for free. And then suddenly the people that did everything in this country, built everything in this country, every structure, every edifice, every process, most inventions, like these people they didn't know how to do anything. We were raising their
Right.
children, tilling their farms, making their food. So suddenly we are lazy and don't know how to do anything. You come in here and you don't understand the history, and you get played, and that's what happens. You get you even the slavery argument. We go through this, and I'm not going to go there. But the fact of that is, the way that this country was designed and set up in the Constitution, there's a 3/5 compromise that said all other persons, that meant Black people, that we were property. So that was nullified by the 14th Amendment. But this country reveres the Constitution like it is a holy document. Other countries that have blemishes like this in their documents, they've rewritten these documents. There's a reason this country doesn't do that. But once that freedom was pronounced to these Black individuals, this country refunded those slave owners for that property.
Us.
That was what began the wealth gap. These
Right.
people, when you hear rich off of the backs of Blacks, this country gave refunds, the initial tax refunds, to these slave owners, and attempted to send us back. Congress at that time said no. We're now dealing with Congress again saying no. To that, I
To
dissent.
Black, to brown. And not respectfully. I
Not
dissent.
respectfully.
And not respectfully.
I was not going to be able to pull myself back in, but I we can move on from that because I'm
Okay.
getting hot because this is the design. It's the design that we have to live and work within. And if we're not having these conversations,
No,
I
we
am
don't. No, we
disappointed.
don't. No, we don't. No, we do not. We
Well,
do not have to do that. That I,
okay,
for
you're
lack of
right.
a better way to
You're
say
right.
it, I rebuke that.
You're
We
right.
do not have to do this.
You're
We have
right.
been
But
taught
we do.
and conditioned
You're right.
that we have to abide by the rules. We have to play within all of the rules that have been given to us. We have to buy into the systems that we have been conditioned that we have to live within, and we have to just accept it and go along to get along. No, we do not. We have the power. And I said this the other night in our other show. This is a democratic republic country. We vote, and yes, I know everybody doesn't
We
want to
go with
vote.
those words again.
I get it. Because they're supposed to mean something. Like a democratic republic is supposed to mean something. It
I
is supposed
agree.
to mean when
I
we go
agree.
into the voting booth
I couldn't
that
agree more.
whatever we are putting on there has power. Now, when it doesn't have power is when we are supposed to show up. When it doesn't have power, when it stops having power, like it clearly has now, that is when we show up in the streets. That's when we show up in our Capitol buildings in our states. That's when we're showing up in our commissioner's offices. And stop blaming the president for everything. The president does not have that much power. We talked the other night about the three articles in the Constitution: Article 1, Article 2, and Article 3. The legislative, the executive, which is the president, legislative is Congress, and the judicial branch. That's the Supreme Court, the federal circuit courts. When we have levels to this, local, state, federal. When the president is not responsible for the pothole that been down your street for 50 years. That is not who is responsible for that. That might be your commissioner. That might be your state department of transportation. But guess who is also giving some funding probably to your state department of transportation? The federal government. Guess who has the power of the purse in our federal government? Congress. So when Alex is saying Congress is once again saying no, it is because they have the power of the purse and they're not using it. They keep doing these well speeches. I don't care about your well speech. I don't care about you breaking a
Don't give
congressional
a damn.
record for
I don't give
standing
a
in the
damn.
well for the longest time. They still came behind you. Mike Johnson talked about him like a dog as soon as Hakeem Jeffries sat down. He got up there, talked about him as his colleague, said, I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to keep it cute and keep it short, essentially. And then they went right ahead with the vote to cut your SNAP, to cut your Medicaid, to cut your Medicare, to cut the funding to your rural community hospital, to make sure that you have to do more in order to get these safety net benefits. Never mind the fact that some people who have mental and invisible disabilities who cannot keep a regular job because it is a disability, they use these safety net programs to live and to work on. So, no, I don't care about your well speeches. I don't care about you breaking a record and staying up all night from 4:30 in the morning, or what time did Cory Booker start? 1 a.m. or whatever. I don't care. I don't care. It is thank you. And also, at this point, it's performative. And like you have been saying for the better part of the beginning of the show, it's too late. It's too late. I don't even care about you trying to bring about impeachment articles. It's not doing anything. So I think that it's too late for the mouthpiece of this, but it's also too late for us to continue thinking that this is a
Yeah.
system we have to live in. We don't. We have the power. Okay? I'm not saying everybody stop paying your taxes,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
like
where
we have
where
the
I where
power.
I find myself frustrated is that we have the power, but it's all often drowned out by opportunism and the lack of information.
Yep.
And I am a champion of you going places, doing things, and being in spaces that give you information.
Right.
If you are connected to whatever your community groups are and they're not giving you information, it's the same old, same old. I understand. I get it. One of the the main points that I stood on, mostly especially when I was doing radio in Atlanta, is that these communities are not voting because these local community leaders are taking advantage of these neighborhoods. And I was
Yeah.
watching it. I'm watching it. And I can still go back down there and tell you who was running this community, what they did or did not do.
Yes.
And for those of you in communities where you've been there 30 years and you've seen little change,
Right.
the problem is who is helping run that community. The lack of
Absolutely.
resource, sure, there's a lack of resources. Things funnel into our areas, sometimes late, sometimes less. But if you don't have an advocate, part of the reason that it's continued for 30 years is because your representation was silent about it.
Yep.
Your representation was being paid off not to say or not to do anything.
And that's
And
local
I
and
have
state and federal.
I have a major problem with that. I have
Yeah.
such a big problem with that. You cannot tell me, and I think this is wide ranging. I see it in everything. You go into these communities that are literally depending on information. People are busy. That's part of the reason that people don't vote in every election. They're busy. And so
Yeah.
if you live in a place where the information is not readily available and you have to go seek that information out, those people are not going to do it because they may be the working poor. They may have 2 jobs, 2 kids, and no more time in the day to sit down and look up every single person that's representing them.
Right.
So your local leaders in those communities, or lack thereof, that's where that accountability has to start.
Yeah.
I'm hard on faith institutions because if you sit up here and talk about the blessing, and or whatever else, and not what's happening with your people, not what's happening in their community, not who is literally being elected to dismantle things and programs that help them move forward and stay above water,
Right.
close.
Immediately. Immediately. I don't want to hit that yet because we're going to talk about the complicity later in the show. But I do want to answer this question because I think it's a good one and it's one that we both I think get pretty frequently. What are some Thank you for your question, Camille. What are some strategies that community organizations can use to communicate to the masses what will really happen before their constituents are reelected and these changes go into effect in 2026?
Really
I
good
think this
question.
is a very, very good question, because there's a balance, right? There are some things that are a bit dangerous. Like, for example, when Project 2025 was becoming viral, and I kept seeing a bunch of workshops or little one pagers pop up. Top 5 things you need to know about Project 2025, and I'm like, you can't put this into the top 5 things. Like, I know we have a short attention span, and also there were way more than 5 things. You needed to have a series of one pagers. But also there is some preventative work. So I say this is an important question because we're in 2025 now. The work should have already started. And if you haven't already started it, it needs to start like immediately. There is one of my biggest concerns and issues with the Democratic convention is they're not proactive enough. They tend to be very reactive. And so, as organizations, as organizers, I'm an organizer myself, we have to and should be more proactive with what we are doing and how we're hitting the ground and how we're getting information out, right? So, for example, there was a bill here during the last legislative session in the Georgia state legislature that would have made it so that if you supported or helped anyone get reproductive access or abortion care, then you could be charged with a felony. Well, we showed up at the Capitol. It was too late. They were having a committee meeting and it was past 90 die and all of that anyway. So we showed up in full force. People drove from out of state. It was a whole thing. Saying that to say, we know it's going to come back up next year. And so organizers are already talking about how can we get into these communities with the representatives who supported this bill and get the information out to them. We're talking about that now. We've been talking about it since the committee meeting happened. So, in answer to your question, Camille, because I'm sure it's one that many have about what do you say as an organization, what do you say to the masses of what will really happen? You got to break it down into chunks and make it digestible, but don't just stop at the top 5 or the top 10 things you need to know about the big, beautiful bill, right? Because you're going to miss some things. So, it has to be maybe it's a series of one pagers, right? Maybe it's a series of community town halls where you bring in certain subject matter experts who work in taxes, who work in the economy, who work in healthcare, who work in safety net programs. And you bring in subject matter experts who can break down these policies. And you just have a series of one pagers, a series of materials, a series of town halls, and you get that information out as much as possible. Rinse and repeat. Like once is not enough. You have to keep doing it. It has to be proactive and it has to be digestible, but it can't be top 5, top 10. It has to keep going and it has to be detailed, but it has to be broken down in a way that different people coming from different vantages and perspectives can find what their entry point is. They may not care about Medicaid or Medicare, but they care about SNAP or vice versa. So you have to have different perspectives in your materials and in your talking points and messaging and organizing methods so that you can hit a lot of different people in a lot of different ways.
100%. Camille, thank you for your question. And I would also say, shout out to my auntie. Hey, Aunt Gail. Um, I would piggyback off of your answer here as well. I think one thing that you can say to people that refuse to vote, and often this is two things: disillusionment, and that disillusionment runs deep. So I never say that this is an open and shut situation because it won't be. It will have to be something that you work on individual people and some people that you build relationships with. It'll be harder to especially canvassing, but it's harder to get people in masses or people that you're not in relationship with that have this stance to see, unless with those people you need to make things ultra local. So take national, take state, even take your local county away and start to talk about the things that are. I remember a couple of years, maybe a decade ago, I remember my brother moved to South Atlanta for a while and he was down there. He had a real issue with the grocery stores having like food that wasn't fresh, selling expired food and bad vegetables. And he's like, I don't understand. I never had this experience when I lived on the north side. And he's like, I don't get why that is. Well, that can be addressed, right? You can, for an issue like that is not just about the business. The issue about that's a community issue that's wide ranging, and that's when you go and you start to look for those local representatives. Sometimes the people that don't want to vote is because they don't know that they can vote for their local city councilman. They don't know they can vote for their local alderman. They don't know that there are people that are in their sphere of influence, people that may pop up at church services when it's voting time, or people that they know that have been down at some restaurant, or some people that they've seen in the community and had no idea that that person can change the trajectory of what is happening and how it's happening. And it's important to get that information to those people. And politics is local. Everything begins local. When you start to transform your local community and participate in your local community, things start to change around you. When things start to change around you, those people are more emboldened to even want to participate in something that can change things for everyone. And the larger that you go, we get hyped up and psyched up into these national elections for good reason. We have elected a monster multiple times, and it seems like we will keep doing that. But on that question, I think it's really important just to focus. And people that just ultrally refuse, I do think it's just because they haven't seen that change. And going back to when I used to discuss this in Atlanta, I used to focus on a certain neighborhood. We call it Old Nat, but Old National Highway has looked the exact same since I was like 10. And it will continue to look the same. The people in that area, and I don't understand why. It is it is south of Atlanta. The same type of money that's flowing through the rest of the city is available to flow there, and it doesn't. Why? And the people there aren't asking questions because they're disillusioned to the fact that when they do vote, nothing changes. And so those people that are there right now, they have to go, and they got to go. Tiff, you're stuck on that, but they got to go. And until we're able to affect that, I think that we'll find ourselves in these cycles, and hold your leaders accountable, so that your community leaders, your neighborhood leaders, the people that are leading in your community, they shouldn't be leading if they don't have a vision for ensuring that things get better. And I don't know how we come back from that.
I don't either, actually. But that was a great question, and no notes. No notes.
I just what I am not is disillusioned. So I think that I have intentionally try to say less, because in an environment and an ecosystem where everybody is on all the time, people are stuck to media. I am so frustrated with people just performing for phones all day long. I am at the I don't usually have much to say, but we're at a point to where, like, I will tell you that it is too late. You can't make any changes to what's just happened.
Right.
It's too late for that, right? So now, instead of trying to say, well, what can we do, what we have to stop being is reactive.
Yeah.
So
Have
one
to.
thing, and I
Have
know we
to.
got to move on to the next topic, but I'll use this analogy in tech, and I've used it when I've cleaned up, done digital transformations and different technology transformations over the years. I always lead organizations are in bad shape because they are always trying to remediate, or they're trying to repair, or they're trying to be in a support mode all the time. And it
Mm-hmm.
costs money to get ahead of that. So before you can be in a place that you don't have to deal with big outages and being down all the time, you get healthy. You get healthy by establishing a group that is doing proactive remediation, right? So you're fixing the
Yeah.
problems ahead of time. Then you also have to pay people to maintain a healthy environment. So it's expensive because you can't. It's more expensive when you're paying for the last one, when you're always paying for support. It's broken, and now you're down and you're losing money, and you're frustrated and everyone's upset. But had you spent a little bit more money to get proactive, a little bit more money to maintain your health, you have to do less support on that end. That analogy works for this as well.
Yeah.
Like, without being proactive, we're going to be in support support mode all the time, trying to help people navigate hell. That's all.
And that's really what at the end of the day, number one, a lot of the cases and things that Trump and his administration have done have been to try and break the system, right? Some of it has been for distraction purposes. Some of it has been because they want to bog down the court systems. So, our show the other day, we talked about some of the Supreme Court opinions that came down on Friday. One of those being that universal injunctions is now no longer a thing. That is going to create so many hurdles in our court systems, both federal circuit courts, lower courts, Supreme Court. Like, it's going to create a lot of hurdles, because now if folks want remedy, they're going to have to do a class action lawsuit, which has to get certified. Like, it's a whole legal long process for that to happen. So some of these actions, some of these things are to try and break the system. Mind you, we don't have a great system to begin with. Like you said earlier, our constitution is old. Yes, we have amendments, 27 depending on who you ask, 28 depending on if you ask other people, but there are amendments, but it doesn't change the fact that nowhere in our constitution do you have to have an educational requirement to be in any of the offices within the three articles that we mentioned earlier. Not in Article 1, not in Article 2, and not in Article 3. You don't have to have any level of education at all to be the president of the United States, to be a congressional leader, to be on the Supreme Court, to be in a federal, there's any of those
I mean,
elected or
honestly,
appointed
you don't
positions.
need education for much. You don't need to be a doctor to run the Department of Health and Human Services, um, to talk about helping people navigate healthcare and determine who and what where we should be using vaccines. You don't need credentials, apparently. Honestly, again, we are still I'm still reeling from the fact that we elected for the second time someone that is now a convicted felon,
I
because you don't
don't
it doesn't
want to
stop at
talk
him being
about
the
it.
president. A convicted
I
felon
don't want to
is
talk about it.
the commander of the military.
He's got the football, and I can't say what that is right now, but just Google federal football, okay? And that is who y'all put into office again. And that goes for every office. Like, I thought Betsy DeVos was a terrible choice for Secretary of Education during his first administration, and then he selected Linda McMahon for this term. And I
Here's the thing:
just
you thought that she was bad in good faith, and hear me. You thought she was bad in good faith, just on the surface, not because she's the brother of an organization. It's wide
mhm,
ranging. It's just wide ranging, up and down. These people are
it is
terrible. Uh, I'm watching the time, so
horrendous.
I'm gonna push us. I'm gonna push us along. Um,
Okay.
but
Thank you, because we could do all of this.
we can,
I'm just going to
and
go
we
through some of the other healthcare impacts from this bill. We talked about the work requirements changing. Able-bodied adults 19 through 64 would need to complete 80 hours per month of work, volunteering, or receiving job training in order to maintain Medicaid, or you risk being removed from Medicaid. There are exemptions for parents with children under 14, but just a note that that also is going to come with some different eligibility requirements. So states are going to have to recertify eligibility every 6 months, right? There are some different fees and things that they are including with that. So Georgia
eh,
already did a
let me say that in
redetermination
layman's
process here,
terms.
and it did not go well.
I want to say that in layman's terms.
Hmm.
Recertifying for your benefits every 6 months, and maybe that was not the practice. Most likely, it wasn't.
Probably not in your state, no. No.
If you have to
So,
recertify every 6 months, that means that at 5 months you may have trouble. Like, just think about it.
yes,
You guys know. You already know. You know what it's like. You stood in line somewhere for something. That line just got twice as long, maybe 3 times as long. That's the design.
probably.
You want some help? You're gonna need a lawsuit. You're gonna need a lawyer. Like, there's no longer, they've shut down the consumer agencies that you can call, because what happened? Like, this bank locked up, froze my funds. This bank doesn't want to work with me because the bank gave the administration the $1 million to go to the inauguration and stood behind this president, and so that he could get rid of things that protect you. And so this was all a game. All of the even the bamboozle mint, that's not a word. The choice to bamboozle you into championing
I know what you mean.
billionaires, being enamored
Right.
by billionaires. The billionaire that most people can say name his name because they drive his cars. This man made all his money from government contracts.
Literally.
But the legislation was built that way. How long did you wait to get denied for the government grant or contract that you tried to get for your small business?
Right. I'm just
I'm gonna
gonna
say
keep.
something at the end of the show, which I'm gonna say something at the end of the show that is gonna surmise my thoughts. But if I say it now, we will get derailed. So
Okay, hold it.
I'm gonna hold it.
So those are the work requirements. They also are banning any trans care, gender affirming care from using Medicaid or CHIP funding. CHIP is Children's Health Insurance Program. They are banning that. They are also creating barriers for immigrants. There will be a 5-year wait for green card holders, stricter eligibility for undocumented immigrants. And as someone said on one of the shows I was watching earlier, undocumented immigrants also pay taxes. That's another show, but I just want to drop that right there.
You and, and,
It
and people, there's how could they do that? Because they take them out of their check.
That's why I said that's a whole other show. So I'm gonna just put that in the bucket there. 5-year wait for green card holders excludes Planned Parenthood funding under Medicaid, which is a very, very, very big deal. Okay. Um, Nearly 200 clinics, especially in states that are still providing legal abortion care, would lose federal funding. That is just Medicaid, healthcare, SNAP cuts. And so this, of course, puts rural hospitals at risk. They are estimating 51,000 extra deaths each year due to the
Hmm,
drop in healthcare access. And
that
honestly,
is
that's
insane.
probably a low estimate.
I
That's
think so,
probably on the low
and
end.
it's just insane.
Yeah. So that's one section. And that's us summing it up. So there's a plethora more. We still have to hit a couple other sections. Y'all can keep your questions coming. They are definitely good ones. And yes, every 6 months is crazy. I don't disagree with that at all. Um, so Medicaid health is,
I the cruelty is the point.
yes, the cruelty and the hassle is the point.
That's the
It's
point.
got to be made more difficult.
That's the point.
Uh,
I just
for
I
D&I and LGBTQ, of course, there's going to be even more rollbacks for DEI and LGBTQ plus. Training banned federally, and we've already seen some of those impacts. Right? I've seen a plethora of threads and people on social media saying, I had a contract to do cultural sensitivity training. It's been canceled. So all of that banned federally.
well
Anti-CRT, critical race theory language. Go ahead.
I think that where there is error often in politics surrounding anything that doesn't have to do with um I'm trying to choose my words carefully. Status
Good
quo.
luck.
Status quo politics. So we talk about identity politics, and there's been a lot of critique of the Democrats in the last election, and I'm equal opportunity. I have criticism for everybody all the time,
Everybody
but
can get it.
there's been a lot of criticism to this specifically, and my caution to people that are entering politics, people that are in it today, people that are concerned about narratives. Nothing transcends politics like authenticity. And
Yeah.
Democrats error because they are not authentic.
Yeah.
And when people authentically again have already othered you, they've already othered
Right.
an issue and made it about and they accuse you of it. That's what I mean.
Right.
They're easy to flip it on it. Their accusation is genuine. These people
Yes.
are genuine in their accusation and they're genuine in their hate. You're not genuine
Right.
in your representation. So shut up. Speak about the things that you are confident on, things that you care about, and get other spokespeople in there to talk
Right.
about. Don't spend your not these. It's performative, and I'm not going to talk about kente cloth and kneeling and praying in the rotunda. I don't have to talk about that type of performance for you to know that it's performance.
Right.
I don't have to talk
Exactly.
about so let's not do that. Let's not do
Right.
that. The reason that you advocate for people, the reason that I advocate for people, the reason that you advocate for people, the reason that I even have ever gotten into the fact or the people game to where is because I care about people. I care about people despite how they are qualified, despite how they are defined, because people are going to
Yeah.
define you on their own. So
Right.
why would the people that are providing you services should never have to anyway, that's a different discussion. I wanted to interject here because I think that part of the reason that they will Democrats specifically will continue to lose on a culture war that they don't even want to participate in is because they just lie. They either lie or they become performative, and it's not helping. Like you and I think
Right.
about it. You know that movie? I can't think of the movie. It's a Queen Latifah movie, and then she died. But the congressman came to her church, and she just had a real issue with him coming to her church and then being in Prague when she went to Last Holiday. That's the name of the movie. There's
Oh yeah.
it's a message in that movie because
A few of them.
it's the subtle message was this man came in there, performed on behalf, and was making backroom deals with her boss in another country. And then
Yeah.
when he realized he thought she was a black woman with money, he wanted to know, well, how come I don't know you and why aren't we like these are the types of things that I am warning about, right? These people that you
Right.
revere, if they're in the back room making deals that don't benefit you, baby, you're in danger. You're in danger.
They're in the back room making deals all the time. All the time. They're in the
Danger.
front room making deals. They were right there on the congressional floor because it took
You
a
in
while for
danger.
some of the Republicans to even cast their vote today. Um, so they're doing it in front of our faces, honestly. They're not doing it necessarily just behind the scenes all the time. So yeah. LGBTQ plus protections removed in hiring and public services. And again, all of this is still in Project 2025. So the anti-CRT language, the LGBTQ plus protections being removed, DEI and inclusive training. This is all a part of Project 2025 where they're saying they have to get the woke ideologies. I'm using quotes not to be facetious, but intentionally, because this is quoted from Project 2025. They have to get the woke ideology out of schools, out of the federal government, out of businesses. Like this is intentional. So all of this is part of the mandates and the mandate for leadership, aka the policy piece of Project 2025. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by any of this, but I'm definitely not surprised by this specific piece because Mike Johnson even said it in his speech today, right before they took the vote, that they wanted to, again, he repeated it. We have to get the woke liberals out of the way that we do business in politics is essentially what he just said, what he said. But I I'm not surprised by this. I think it's unfortunate that we are losing protections that LGBTQ and Black, Brown, disenfranchised that we have been fighting for generations. Black people and Black women, LGBTQ, we all been trying to fight to get into doors and rooms that we built the table in. Don't I'm not even gonna go down there. Go
I
down
don't
that road.
understand. I don't
Mhm.
understand how it is that we let we let unseasoned people, people with a lack of knowledge, lack of experience, and again, this goes back to DNA most likely, but um, we continue to let things. I think about the word woke.
Mhm.
It's a word that you and I grew up with. It's a word that lives in our community. It's a word that belongs to our community. It's a
Mhm.
word that will forever mean what it means, and it doesn't really matter because you don't what their playbook is. If they don't like it, they things that they don't like, things that they don't understand, they take them, they try to blow them up, and they do
Right.
that proverbially. They do it literally. We're just talking through history. So this word they really didn't, they weren't invited to use it. So they took it and they weaponized it and then started to attach it to everything. And so it's kind of like, it's just kind of what they do. And I guess to say that we let them do it is a bit disingenuous on my part because you don't know when they're going to do it. Just like you don't know when they're going to walk into a movie theater, whether or not you want to stay. And I mean, that's just kind of where we are. We constantly are trying to reshape the narrative and recapture narratives that we already know to be true. But you have to know what you're dealing with. You have to inherently believe that there is the common good that you believe may not be so.
Right. Agreed.
That you think that you have the same best interest, and I know they stop me and say, Alex, come on, you're hard. I'm hard on everybody. I'm hard on everybody because it's just necessary. But when it comes to these people specifically, history tells us what has happened. And on the base level, when we're joking about it, okay, we know you've invaded every continent on the planet, initially looking for spices and still serving bland food. That's we're joking about that, but it's true. There's every continent that they could inhabit, they have inhabited and literally taken over. I say this because whiteness is what I speak about whiteness all the time. Now, whiteness is the plague. Whiteness is the disease, not white people. Whiteness aligned with white supremacy. Whiteness will kill you because it wants to kill you. It's a thing. These people, a lot of the people that live in this country, they didn't come here white. White is a social construct. Going back to the conversation that we were having at the beginning of the show, that you come into this country and you fall into one of two categories plus other. They're after other right now. Like they're after other in an insane way. They are looking to denaturalize naturalized citizens over civil, like that is over a parking ticket. And we're getting close. And I'm gonna say that when we get to the end of the show because that's leading me back to where I want to go. But to your point, woke, all of these things that we have to constantly fight for over and over, it's just not the place that it is, so that we don't spend our time unifying. So until we find our ourselves into a place where we can have a unified message and be unified on our messaging, unified on our approach, we're going to find that they're going to continue to do things that divide us, and they find the most divisive issues and then exploit them. So if they know something is going to divide a community, they're going to drop a bomb into that community to do that, or to spark that division, and then say, "Ooh, look at those people," as if. And I'm speaking of things like drugs. Like, a lot of drug issues that have happened in this country were because the government went and dropped drugs into those communities, and then said,
Right.
"Look at them. Look what they are doing. Look what's happening to them. How come they can't clean this up?"
Right. And
Eh,
just so y'all know, anyone who's new here watching us, we don't just say things for happenstance. We say things that we have proof of. So if we say something and you don't believe it, you are welcome to Google it. You are welcome to reach out to us and we can send you the receipts. He's not saying anything that they haven't admitted to. We watch a lot of documentaries and we read a lot. So I just wanted to put that out there. I also want to answer this question of how will nursing homes be affected? Such a good question. I'm so glad you asked
mm,
because they also will be affected. Some nursing homes are corporate entities, some are privately owned, some get federal funding. But also because a lot of there's a good percentage of patients who use Medicaid and Medicare in nursing homes to not just pay for food or anything like that, but to also pay for the care itself. So if Medicaid and Medicare get stripped, then some of those folks might not be able to be in nursing homes anymore because they won't be able to afford it, which then puts the burden on the family members because they're trying to go to work to also supplement whatever they're paying for the nursing home because nursing homes are very, very, very expensive, speaking from experience. Um, so then that puts a burden on back on the family because now they have to have their loved one at home and now they're missing work because they have to take care of their loved one because they're not just going to leave them hanging and high and dry. So it really is, we're talking about just the direct impacts, right, of this bill. We haven't even begun to hit or talk about all of the indirect impacts. And unfortunately, nursing homes will get a direct, somewhat indirect hit because of how many people rely on Medicare, Medicaid, and those benefits in order to pay for the nursing home. So that there, unfortunately, there will be an impact there. I hate to say that, but also we have to think about the impacts to different family members. We have to think about, the nurse who has their parent, grandparent, great aunt, or someone else in a nursing home to care for them. It's a good nursing home. Good nursing homes are even more expensive. And now they can't go to work, right? They're missing work. They are, having to call out a lot more because they're having to go to the doctor's offices with their loved ones or they're having to do more things. But then that person loses their job. So now they don't have their job. They're not bringing money into the house. They can't get the family member back into a nursing home because Medicaid and Medicare has been cut. So it's a lot of direct and indirect impacts, and nursing homes are definitely one of them. Unfortunately, it's again, everything we are discussing has a direct and an indirect impact, and we haven't even scratched the surface of the indirect impacts that a lot of the pieces of this bill will have, unfortunately. So, great question. Thank you for asking that. Y'all keep the questions coming. You're asking great questions in the chat. So, and share this, share it with your folks. Make sure that they,
definitely.
are watching and they can ask questions too. So that we can start the process of making sure, like Alex said, it's too late to change what's going on in the bill. It's now passed. It's that part is done, but it's not too
Yeah.
late to get the information out. So let's definitely continue to do that. Share this, and we'll try to continue to answer as many questions as we can while we're live. Next, return to states. I hate this sentence so much. I
Yeah.
hate it.
Me too, man.
I hate
I hate
everything
it.
about it. I hate everything about it,
Hate it.
because it is an intentional way to try to say, well, we just believe that states should govern themselves. And that is the conservative way to do it. But as you know, this says a return to states is a return to inequity. Perfect example. Roe v.
Man,
Wade gets overturned at the Supreme Court level in the Dobbs v. Jackson decision. Uh, 3 years ago, Roe v. Wade gets overturned in the Dobbs decision, and they say, we believe that the power should lie within the states to decide what women do with their bodies. Okay, well, some states had trigger laws. What's a trigger law? A trigger law is that once a decision like that gets made, the state's law that they have on the books already automatically goes into effect. Some states, Georgia did not have a trigger law state, but we did already have the heartbeat bill that was on the books, but it was going through the court systems. And so some states kind of phased in after that. Well, now we have had multiple mothers who have passed away because they could not get the reproductive access care that they needed, including the mother who was just here, who they kept on life support, and her baby was just born against the will of the family. And now they're caring for a child and the mother is gone. So they're having to deal with both of those impacts. So essentially, this is federal oversight being removed across various programs: education, housing, healthcare.
can
Roe
you
v.
talk
Wade.
about for a second on that specifically?
Mhm.
That because it's we can glaze over it, but I think it's important that when we're in the moment that we focus on that correlation.
Okay. On the correlation of.
Roe v. Wade and abortion specifically became one of those things that they weaponized because of ignorance. So
Yes.
on the surface level, you hear the word abortion.
Right.
Now, never it makes no never mind that this was something that they cooked up to make an issue. Like it wasn't an
Right.
issue that was they it wasn't an issue, but it was cooked up to become an issue in the late 70s. It became something that Republicans led with to start to divide America with, to say, hey, you're a baby killer, and all of these things where it was really about care for women and health care
Right.
for women and access for women. But if you dumb
Right.
it down, or you dwindle it down to one issue or one wedge issue, then it becomes a passionate issue based on your level of education or exposure. And so now, because this issue is only abortion or only that, I just believe that okay, it's not about that.
Right.
They can make it about that. You can make it
Right.
about that. But on the foundational level, this is about whether or not there will be access for the mother to have health care when she needs it.
Right. When she needs it, according to her and her doctor, husband, spouse, family partner, whatever,
I should go further
whoever
to
is
say
in the decision making space.
decisions being made by men that have no business making them.
You know what pissed me off? And I mentioned the bill earlier in Georgia that would have made it a felony to help or assist anyone in getting and accessing reproductive care. You know what really pissed me off? It was two older white men who co-sponsored that bill, and it was all white men who signed on as supporters of the bill, and I think one or two white women. That's who, which I got my own conversations for the women. But
I'm gonna
the
talk about
rest
that
of
at the
them,
end of the show. That's why we got to hurry up.
you're right. Okay, okay. So this is the return to states, return to inequity. The more you remove federal oversight, it sounds like a good thing, and for some it is, depending on what state you're in. We talked
It's
about
a
red
terrible
state
thing.
versus, huh?
It's a terrible thing.
I'm trying. Okay, if you're in a blue state,
It's a
it's a
terrible
bit
thing
different
because there's
than if
no
you're in a
way
red
that we
state.
should all be disjointed under different laws.
Now that I agree with, I I agree
Especially livelihood
wholeheartedly.
laws, right? I get that we live in different, this country's too damn big, so I get that point.
Right,
I get that. It's too
right,
big. You need different laws for certain things, right? Some places
right.
have too much wildlife. You gotta, you know what I'm saying? But
But when you remove that federal oversight, there are plenty of examples. Roe v. Wade is just one. We could go down the Voting Rights Act. They stripped a piece of the Voting Rights Act so that states that redraw their maps no longer have to send it to the Department of Justice
Talk
so
about
that
it,
it's
sister.
reviewed so that they do not do racial gerrymandering. Racial gerrymandering is illegal while
Talk about
political
it, sister.
gerrymandering is not. Racial gerrymandering is when they redraw the maps and say, Black people live here, white people live here. We want to split these and we want to make sure that the Black folks vote this way and they can be over there and they can have their little district over there. And, but we want this chunk of land over here. That is racial gerrymandering. That is illegal. Political gerrymandering is when they look at the maps and they say, well, this area tends to vote more conservative and this area tends to vote more Democratic. That is legal. So what happened after they removed the piece of the Voting Rights Act because they wanted to start removing federal oversight, and the Supreme Court essentially said, we live in a post-racial society. We don't need to have this piece of the Voting Rights Act because folks will redraw their maps equitably. That did not happen. 6 states redrew their maps, and all of them needed to redraw them again. The case that the Supreme Court decided would be re-argued in the next October term was the Louisiana redistricting case because it's inequitable. Georgia's map was redrawn inequitably. It kicked certain representatives out of the districts that they were in. So the federal oversight is supposed to be for us. It's so that departments like the Civil Rights Division within the Department of Justice can review decisions like this from the states and make sure that equity exists and that things aren't being done in the rooms where deals are being made behind closed doors that we're not a part of. That is what the federal oversight is for. And so with that being removed, we're looking at a plethora of civil rights rollbacks that could occur state by state by state. They're just going to chip away at it little by little. So this is really a problem. And again, this is a Project 2025 mandate. This is part of their policy agenda in Project 2025. It's intentional. And we cannot stress that enough. If you have not even started reading Project 2025, if we're saying Project 2025 and you have no idea what we're talking about,
it's too late.
One, it's too late. It's far too late. They've been checking things off all year long. But it's not too late for you to start reading it and familiarizing yourself with it. I'm not saying you have to read all 900 and some odd pages that it is like we sat and did. But I am saying you need to
that you can do the needful and put it into ChatGPT and ask for a summary.
You can do that. That's a great use of AI.
Ask it how it's going to affect you.
And share that with your family.
If Chat doesn't know you, then tell it who you are. Tell it a little about yourself and see. It will go through those 900 pages and say, hey, on page 233, page 555, I think, what state do you live in? In fact, please don't use Google to see if you live in a red state or blue state. Use ChatGPT.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna say that because AI is not getting safe as well. So just go ahead and use that one. We're working on some things that will help you out.
We'll share that later.
But go ahead and use that one.
But look for those keywords, right? You can search the document if you download it or pull it up on your browser, whatever you do. You can search. If you have a family member that's on Medicaid, you can pull up the Mandate for Leadership, Project 2025, and say, tell me what Medicaid, what Medicaid pieces are in here. You're going to see almost verbatim language from Project 2025 in this bill. And not only is it doing that in this bill, your states might be doing it too. I tracked our state legislature. I haven't seen this much copy and paste of congressional bills at the state level in a long time, maybe if ever, like almost verbatim. And so,
I've been cross-referencing. I will cross-reference everything, and especially things that are coming out from them. I start with Project 2025. I'm going to cross-reference it to see whether or not you were lazy or whether or not you just want to pick up on this bigoted effort to because and that document is definitely demeaning. That
Oh,
document is definitely, they
absolutely.
are saying it, that it is a
Absolutely.
manifesto
Absolutely.
of whiteness,
Absolutely. White
whiteness
supremacy
emboldened.
all throughout. And we're not being facetious. We're not, that's not hyperbole. Like, it is a uh how did he say it in Bad Boys? White power. Like, that is
It's a manifesto. It's a
it is a white power manifesto. It is a, we are scared that we are about to become the minority and we cannot have that. So here are all of the things, some of these things we've been working on since the first mandate for leadership we released during the Reagan administration. And some of these we're just bringing up now because we're noticing this woke ideology is growing a little bit too much in schools. They're starting to share certain books with certain ideologies, and we can't have that.
they're
and
starting
and
to ask
so
questions.
they're starting, yeah,
They're
they're
starting to ask
starting,
questions,
they're
or
getting a little
they
bit
don't
too
believe
smart.
us. They don't believe us.
Yeah,
But
we got a little too smart for our own good, and
I
so now we
gotta,
gotta.
because the last time I got hot, my glasses got steamy, so I take them off.
Okay.
For because you we have that left brain right brain thing going on. I was ending on them running scared, and I it's great that we got here when we got here, because if you don't understand what's happening, you should understand that prior to Trump's election, white people were scheduled, they were scheduled to become minorities in the United States in the year by the year 2044. Now, I'm going to say a couple of things that should help you correlate what is actually happening. If you believe nothing else, you can run everything else by that. And I'm sure that it's not 2044 right, as it stands right now, and the way that they've expedited the exit of brown skinned people on this land.
Right.
But part of the reason you can filter all of this through that one lens, that they have this, we're giving money for people to have babies. Specifically, they want white babies here. They're upticking deportations, but it's
And
widely known
disappearing
that there are
folks.
more white people here illegally that overstay their visa than Mexicans that cross the border, or people seeking asylum from Haiti. But instead, there's just been an order that overturned over 500,000, the legal status of 500,000 Haitians, so that they could be deported because this country is too brown. Now, they will tell you that they don't see color. Hate that, because you should. You not seeing color may be the problem, but we know that's not true. But
Right.
you'll say that with your words. That's a dangerous thing. But they'll tell you that minorities, uh what did you say the Supreme Court said there? But there's no racial
Oh,
inequality.
we live in a post-racial society.
Post-racial
We don't need
society,
rules.
minorities are just as equal as everybody else, but they're terrified of becoming the minority. They're terrified of becoming the minority, because they do believe that we will do what they did to us. And
Right.
although I would say that the people that walked this planet for a long time may not have had that desire. They may have just wanted to be left alone, or they may have just, wanted some peace.
Imagine that.
I don't think that's the case anymore. I think there are people here now that actually think that y'all should. And again, all I'm saying, I'm putting it out there. I'm not saying whether I can't call who wants what, or what type of revenge or vengeance. I'll take you back to you believe in one thing and other people not believing the same thing. You're not necessarily on the same page. We're definitely not on the same page as we once were.
No.
We've allowed, I say this all the time, you had a civil rights era in this country, and they killed all of that. They killed the progressive president at that time, and all of this happened in the same decade. They killed the civil rights leader that said by any means necessary, after they surveilled him for over a decade, and then the
And use
nonviolence.
their own people to do it.
It didn't matter what the method was, which is why acceptability politics cannot work. You being a good black or a good brown or a good person so that they look at you differently. No, they see you one way. White people know who's white, and that's something else. Like they know who's white, and they have a preference. They have, and there's gonna say, oh, I know good. I know we all know good white people, and I'm not saying I continue to say white people are not the problem. Whiteness is. If white people are clinging to their whiteness,
Because whiteness knows no skin color. Be clear.
I got
It
a
knows
class
no skin color.
called "Am I a White Supremacist?" It's not for white people.
And that's it. That's all.
It's just not for white people. And so that being said, this conversation continues.
Oh
This
wait,
happened today.
I have
Yeah, I
to.
wasn't rapping. I was wrapping that
Okay,
point.
okay,
But
because I was like, I still
know
got my
I'm just
complicity that I gotta hit. I'm not over it. Tell me when you're ready.
you got the floor and 4 minutes.
Okay, I don't even need 4. Let me tell y'all something. You mentioned that you had a problem with the church earlier. I am going to give a critique, not just of the church, but of organizations, of individuals, and of any faith communities. If all you have been saying for the last 2 Sundays is we have to pray, you are complicit. Okay. I don't want to hear anyone else say, well, we have to just pray and trust God. Well, he can only do what God allows him to do. Well, I'm just believing that God is going to come through. That is all fine and good. And also, I don't know what y'all's Bible says, but mine says faith without works is dead. And I just really believe that at least the God that I know believes that we have the capability to also put forth our faith with our works. You cannot pray and then not do anything else. That's how we got in this situation to begin with. So, to every pastor, to every executive director, to every faith-based person, to every person who's not even in the church, if you haven't sat in a pew in a long time, whoever, whatever, if all you have been saying is you are relying on God, you are complicit and you are part of the problem. Love you down. Not sorry. If that is all you are giving your congregations in this season, if you are not offering resources, if you are not planning town halls, if you are not planning workshops, if you are not planning talks, if you are not bringing in subject matter experts, economists, tax people, healthcare people, SNAP people, safety net people, if you are not bringing in these people into your congregation, into your organization, into your space, planning events, getting out into the community, going door to door. You go to door anytime you want them in your pews. You go door to door anytime you want them to donate to your campaign or your organization. Go door to door with a one pager about how this big, beautiful bill is going to impact their big, beautiful life. Okay. If you're doing a food pantry, put a one pager in the grocery bag that you're giving away to your community members. Do not get in the pulpit or on your stage or whatever else it is that you have and just say, oh, we have to pray. That is up. It's too late. It's too late for that. And that is a very, very, very dangerous message to give to people right now. People are scared, okay? You cannot just tell people who are scared, we just got to pray and we just got to rely on God. That's cute. What are you going to do when their Medicaid is snatched? Are you going to be able to pay for the nursing home that their person is in? Probably not. Probably not. And I'm going to leave that leave all the reasons why for another night and another discussion. My point is, you are complicit if you are also spewing dangerous, complicit language. If you are spewing agreeable language, we just have to wait the next 4 years out. Beloved, this is going to last far beyond 4 years. Some of the stuff in this bill is earmarked for 2036. They are expecting impacts for the next decade at least. These go far beyond what president is in office. So we got to do more than pray. Okay. I'm done.
Okay. Well, how do they get in touch with you?
Tiffany Linnell on TikTok and Tiff Linnell everywhere else.
I'm Alex Unmuted everywhere. And this is Black Headlines. Blackalerts.com is where you can find this show and more. The Black Alerts app is in your app store. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.